Today, we're cracking open a really unusual text, the Karuna Pundarika Sutra. Now, if you ever try to read this ancient Buddhist scripture, your first reaction is probably going to be shock. It is filled with some truly bizarre imagery and actions that feel so extreme they just don't make sense to us. But what if that's because we've been looking at it all wrong? What if it's not a storybook, but something more like an instruction manual?
Okay, so let's just rip the Band-Aid off. The first thing you notice in this text are these incredible acts of giving. And I don't mean just donating to charity. I'm talking about these enlightened beings, these bodhisattvas, giving away everything, their kingdoms, their families, even their own bodies, their own flesh and blood. It is intense, to say the least. And you can't help but ask, why? Why on earth would anyone do this?
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Is this sutra just a super extreme guide to self-sacrifice? A call to abandon everything in some kind of painful ritual? Or is there something else going on here? A different kind of logic, hidden, just under the surface?
Well, this is where it gets really cool. The common way of looking at this is, just as some kind of extreme religious practice. But what if we've been missing the point entirely? What if the sutra isn't about painful rituals at all, but is actually a kind of technical manual, a sort of awakening operating system that spells out step by step exactly how a Buddha is made?
So if we run with that idea that this is an ancient operating system, then what's the core program it's running? What's the algorithm? Well, once you start looking at it through that lens, a surprisingly clear and logical process starts to emerge from the text.
It really boils down to 3 key steps. First, you have great compassion. Think of this as the why. It's the engine that kicks the whole process into gear. Then you have the great vow. This is the goal. This is the code you're writing that tells the system exactly what you want to achieve. And finally, you have extreme action. That's the execution phase, the program actually running. And here's a totally crucial insight that turns our usual thinking on its head. Most of us think a spiritual journey starts because we want to fix ourselves, right? To end our own suffering. But this operating system says, nope. The true starting point, the thing that powers up the whole engine, is seeing the suffering of everyone else and deciding right then and there that you're going to solve that problem first.
So if compassion is the engine, what's the main thing you actually do? Well, the sutra puts a huge emphasis on one particular action as the quickest way to basically hack our own default programming, that ego-driven system we all run on. And that action is called dana, or giving. But look, the way the sutra defines it is, well, it's radical. This isn't about writing a check or donating old clothes. It is the absolute, complete release of anything the mind claims as mine. Your stuff, your status, your power, your physical body, and even the idea of an I that owns any of it.
You can see the difference so clearly here. When you give with an I, there's always an actor at the center of the story. I am helping you. I am so generous. The ego is still running the show, collecting points. But the giving the sutra talks about is what happens when that whole I system just goes offline. It's a total unconditional release. There's an action, but there's no actor there to take the credit.
And all of this is guided by the vow. You see this phrase over and over in the text, I make this vow. And you can think of this as the actual programming language of cause and effect. You are literally defining a future outcome, locking all of your actions into making it happen, and then just letting the laws of causality run the code.
Okay, so let's put these pieces together. We have compassion as the engine, the vow as the code, and action without an I as the execution. With that framework, let's go back to those shocking images from the beginning and see if we can finally solve this puzzle.
And here it is. This is the key. The mind-bendingly extreme act of, say, giving away your own body isn't what causes you to become enlightened. It's the ultimate proof that the operating system of I and mine has been completely and utterly deleted. Think about it. If there's no me who owns this body, then there's literally nothing that can't be given away.
Here's a fantastic way to think about it. Imagine you're playing a video game. Your character might get hurt or lose a powerful item, and yeah, it's a little annoying, but you don't feel deep personal suffering, because on some level you know the character isn't the real you. Well, according to this text, a Buddha sees this entire reality, including their own body, with that same kind of detachment. It's all just part of the game.
But the system doesn't just stop when one person wins the game. And this is where the sutra's logic starts to sound incredibly modern.
It turns out this Awakening OS wasn't designed as a single-player experience. It was designed to go viral. You can see the whole system architecture laid out here. The input, the problem of universal suffering. The engine, that three-step algorithm we talked about. The output is, of course, awakened beings. But check out that last line, expansion. A core part of the protocol is to get other people to install the same OS and start the process for themselves.
And that leads to this just incredible conclusion. The sutra is telling us that Buddhahood is not some lonely, individual achievement you get by meditating on a mountaintop. It's a network phenomenon. One awakened person inspires 10 more, who each inspire another 10. It's an exponential system designed for mass propagation. It's designed to spread.
So, this is all fascinating, right? But the big question is, what does any of this mean for us living our lives today? How can we actually use this ancient operating system? Let's try to break it down into a user guide for the modern world.
Okay, first, and this is the most important point, let's be crystal clear about what this does not mean. You do not need to literally imitate these extreme acts. The point is not self-harm or some kind of wild asceticism. The text is describing an internal state of being, not giving you a literal to-do list.
So what can you do? Well, we can translate these principles. We can practice micro-giving, not giving away our bodies, but giving our time, our knowledge, our full attention, our kindness. We can work on reducing the role of I in our lives, a little less control, a little less comparison, a little less self-centered thinking. And we can build our own vow system by simply asking, what kind of person do I really want to be? And then letting our daily actions write that code into reality.
So when you boil it all down, the ultimate takeaway is this. The Karuna Pundarika Sutra isn't really a rule book that's telling you what you need to do. It's a description of the kind of being you naturally become when that persistent feeling of a separate solid I finally fades away.
But this whole logical, psychological way of looking at it brings up a huge and pretty fascinating question. If this is all just an internal operating system for overcoming the ego, then why is the rest of the sutra filled with these wild descriptions of infinite universes, Buddhas with godlike powers, and entire worlds fitting inside a single pore of the skin? What is that all about? Well, that's a puzzle for next time.